Hi everyone. Thanks for coming to our talk today. The title is Oops, Did We Include You? A Journey to Better Assessments and Plans.
So too often, people with learning disabilities are left out of the very plans that are meant to them, and this includes the assessments that other professionals will do. And we often think that we are including people, but actually, have we really included them? So this session is all about learning from our oops moments and how we've made assessments better and ensuring that people who matter most are at the heart of what we do. So I'm Sara. I currently work at Mercury College and the transitional services as part of the Hesley Group. And I've known Stephen since October 2023. Yeah.
My name is Stephen. I am a student at Mercury College and I am here to talk about the work Sara and I have done together. Have you seen this wizard? I love Harry Potter and James Bond. I'm a big Donny Rovers fan and play for the Doncaster Titans. I like sensory and fidget toys. They help me concentrate. I moved into residential care when I was around 10 years old. Since then, I have lived in lots of different places and I moved to Alliance in 2023 and started going to Mercury College. When I first moved to Alliance, I lived on my own, but now I share with another person. Before doing this work, I didn't have any input on my plans, but now I know the staff have them to follow.
And I'm Sara. I love traveling and I'm always on the lookout for the next place to visit. Stephen and I also share the love for all things Harry Potter, and we found out yesterday that we actually both Slytherins, aren't we?
Yeah.
We've done the test again, didn't we, yesterday, just to double check. I've worked with both children and adults, in home settings, residential settings, and education settings. And I'm very passionate about helping people live into their full potential. It's about having fun and making things accessible to everyone. I'm a big believer in progress, not perfection. That's for myself and the people I support. And I enjoy working with the staff teams and training others and sharing what I've learned along the way with everybody. As part of my role at Mercury College and other lines where Stephen lives, I often complete the functional behaviour assessments, which then influence the PBS plans, and we develop this alongside the staff teams and the education teams. And I also provide support with teaching skills both at college and in the home. However, with the functional behaviour assessment, sometimes it feels that it's a one-size-fits-all. We often will collate background information from paperwork. We might have discussions with families and support workers. And then some part of that is dedicated to the person and their likes and dislikes. We then will spend some time with them doing direct observations, and then we'll conduct the indirect methods of assessment. So we might complete, your big bags with family members, support workers. We might involve education staff, and then we'll also look at an overall incident analysis as part of the process.
So why people need to be involved? We looked at my previous plan and it was not easy for me to even understand. There were also things that didn't think were right. For example, my previous plan said that when I get distracted, support staff should redirect me back to work. I think staff helping me would be better.
And then what else have you said about why you need to do it?
Nobody's done anything like this with me before. It makes me feel like I wasn't a part of it. I don't like that I don't know what's in my plans. My PBS plan is not accessible for me. The plan is not always right. I was happy to be included.
And then from my point of view, it's their life at the end of the day. So they deserve to have a say in decisions that affect them, and we should not be making decisions for people.
And as someone has just said in the chat, that first slide has a great photo on it.
Thank you. We're very proud of that one.
And you're both amazing. Yeah, everyone's supporting you. So don't you worry.
So another saying, why people need to be involved. So it's their life. They deserve to have the same decisions that affect them, and we should not be making those decisions for them. They matter and they have a lot to say, and we must listen to what they say. Obviously, the more we involve people, the more motivated they will be in their plans and creating their goals, and then they're more likely to work towards them. We create some autonomy, so nobody likes to be told what to do by other people. They like to be the ones in charge of what they do and when. And by doing that, we're providing some better support, because one size fits all usually doesn't fit anyone. And self-advocacy is a superpower. So helping people to speak up for themselves means that going forward, it will be a lifelong win.
If we are making plans for someone, they should be at the head of the table, not an agenda item. Ultimately, people are the undisputed experts on themselves. No one has been with them longer or knows them better than they do themselves. For those collecting CEUs, here's your first word, snitch from Harry Potter.
You were very surprised by this.
Yeah.
They were all Harry Potter themed.
There is a theme.
Our process.
So preparation was key for us. You know, we knew it was going to be a very, very long process, and we spent a lot of time building trust. That for us was the most important step. It was built over time. You know, it took a long time to build a relationship, but we got to know each other. We've spent a lot of time together during breaks in college, during lesson times. We've been out together.
Yeah.
Where have we been together?
Nando's.
We've been to Nando's together a few times. You've helped me out going to get some food. Yeah. I would see Stephen. So if I was ever visiting the lines, I would see Stephen. I'd always pop in for a coffee. But also I made sure that I was around when things got a little bit tough. And currently we still have a weekly slot together, don't we? What do we do every week?
Have lunch together.
We have lunch together every week. What days do we have lunch together?
Mondays.
Mondays. And this week's been a lot because we've been prepping for this, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a lot recently.
Sara met me and explained what she needed to do and what she needed me to do. Sara had it all written on the paper, and I got a letter sent to my house. They told me what work Sara wanted to do with me, and a list of the things that she wanted to cover, and some dates that she was free. And then phoned Sara to arrange a time to start the session. When we finished this session, we booked in the next session. I booked the sessions to get out of doing the lessons I don't like cleaning up after cafe, every time with tutors.
So yeah, a big part of what we did was to find out what the best times and days were for you. And surprisingly, you chose cleaning up time after cooking, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So where we started, the biggest challenge for us was making the traditional functional assessment process accessible, co-produced and fun. For those of you that use the BBAT, we know sometimes is not the most accessible document, yet we are very aware that the information it gives us is really good. So we looked at breaking down the BBAT into 10 sections, and we designed a number of different activities to get the information we needed from Stephen directly. So we had to think about what Stephen's preferences were and what we knew about him to develop the activities, but we also had to consider how to break down those tasks further in a way that was not going to be repetitive to get the information that we wanted.
I wanted to change it to talk about the bad stuff first, so we didn't follow the order. Also, that there were exercises I didn't like, so we changed them, like creating a poster. I don't like art and crafts, it's too messy, so we did a poster on the computer instead.
Yeah, so as part of the the session. So you always had a choice, didn't you, of what you wanted to do. If there was something that you weren't sure about, we would always change it and come up with different videos, didn't we? And you've designed some really cool posters like the ones we've got next. So as part of we started with the likes and dislikes, and we looked at the activity. So we played football question catch, because you love football.
Yeah.
Yeah. Snakes and ladders were also a very popular one. And then we looked at online whiteboard posters. So you've designed the things you didn't like. What else did you
Things I like. I'm a perfect day.
Yeah, and you said you're perfect where there was snow, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you want to go to bed at midnight every day. Yeah.
So I played like salsa. We played the game Snakes and Ladders, where if you landed on a blue square, you had to draw 2 cards. One card had like or dislike, and the blue card had a question that we had to answer. My staff and friend joined in to play Snakes and Ladders, which was fun, and it was good to learn about what everybody liked and didn't like. We also played a game of throw and catch, where we had to answer the question, but our thumb landed when we caught it. I liked both of the activities because I really like playing games. After playing the games, we did poster about the things I liked and one about the things that I didn't like. We did it on a computer because I don't like autographs. It's messy.
So what things have we learnt about each other? Do you remember? What things don't I like?
Anything with feathers.
Yeah, anything with feathers and birds. And I learned that you don't like
Wasps and bees.
wasps and bees. Because we were talking about the beehive, weren't we? And then I've realised that you don't like them. All right. And then we also looked at Stephen's strengths. So we talked a lot about what he was good at and what he liked to do. So we looked at the skill rating games, where we rated activity cards on a 5-point scale. Then we looked at question games, where we drew question cards and answered them. And then Stephen wanted to create an acrostic poem with all the things he was really good at and the things he wanted people to describe him as, wasn't it?
So we had a game where we did skill cards and then had to rate ourselves on a scale between good at and not good at. I thought the skill games were really easy because I like that. I could see all the things that I was good at. We had another game where we took turns pulling out question strips and answered the questions on them. I found some questions easy and some were really difficult for me to answer. The difficult questions were around things that in the past.
So like Stephen was saying, some things were difficult to talk about, weren't they? But how we've overcome them, Stephen was always in control of what he wanted to talk about and not talk about. Interestingly, there were times you would say, I don't want to talk about that. And then 2 days later, you'd say, actually, I don't want to talk about this session. I want to talk about that thing 2 days ago that I didn't want to talk about. Yeah?
Yeah.
Equally as well, there were some of the activities that were a little bit difficult sometimes. However, Stephen was quite open about telling us that, and we were able to together adapt those activities and making sure that they were broken down and integrated in other aspects of the sessions. And then we talked about values. We did some activities around values. So you've got some examples on the pictures. And this one was a difficult one to find, wasn't it? Because finding activities around values sometimes can be really difficult. But eventually we found some nice worksheets and we had some really good discussions about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So top 2 values were being creative. To me, being creative means arty crafts, which I don't like because it's messy. I could be creative when it's singing or not messy. Having material goods. I think that's not about receiving, it's about giving. I still like to receive presents though. So about my values. We first talked about things in my life that were most important to me and created a poster where I put the things that were most important to me in bigger shapes. and things that were less important to me in smaller shapes. As I did the values questionnaire where I rated how important different values are to me and chose which values were most important to me before doing this activity. Nobody has asked me what my values are, so I didn't know what they were. Now I know what my values are, and looking at them has helped me figure out what I wanted to do when I leave college. I want to live in supported living, have friends, and work as a sports coach.
You've talked about your important values, your least important ones, which is being creative. We know with online messy stuff.
Yeah.
But you're very good at singing though, and acting. And material goods. What about your most important one?
So being fair and respectful, this is important to me because it just is. If I'm not respectful and fair, I think that may mean people don't want to be around me. Second one, being honest. This is important to me because you have to be truthful. If you don't tell the truth, people may not be able to trust you. Last one, being thankful. This is important to me because you have to be thankful because others give you things.
Yeah, and we've talked about those. Yeah. And then we came to talk to Stephen about antecedents. So it was very important for us to talk about the things that made you upset, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we had lots of cards with different things that could happen. And we picked cards and matched them to a feelings thermometer. And you liked the thermometer, didn't you?
Yeah.
And you've created all of this together. And then, yeah, this is us.
Yeah.
Doing that, what we're doing here.
Playing the thermometer game.
Thermometer game.
And the antecedent is what happens before an incident happens. Knowing the antecedents can help me then identify the things that can make me upset. We started by playing a game where we have cards with lots of different scenarios on them, like somebody making homophobic comments, and matched them to a feeling thermometer as to how they made me feel. Homophobic comments made me angry. In another session, I learned what an antecedent was. It's something that happens before an incident. And we looked at what the antecedents to my incident were. Knowing my antecedents has helped me identify the things that can make me angry. These are my most common antecedents. They are at me asking for something that we don't have. When staff ask me to do something I don't want to do, or find hard around mealtimes, and when I am supported by staff that I don't know.
And then obviously alongside the antecedents, it came the time to have some difficult conversations, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we had to think very carefully how we were going to do this because we didn't want to ruin the relationship we had. We didn't want to be upset or cause any upset. So we created a behaviour game alongside our speech and language therapist. And it was a bit like a Monopoly kind of game where we rolled the dice and whatever behaviour you landed on, you had to talk about whether you've done it before and what the context was.
There were lots of things that I found it difficult to talk about, like things in my past and things I do when I'm angry. We made it easier when staff turned it into a game and gave me time to answer and staff sharing the things they might also do. It surprised me that even staff may do things like swear or shout. It can feel like only students do things when they are angry.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about road rage, didn't we?
Yeah.
Didn't we? Or when our plans get cancelled last minute and what sort of things we might do. Yeah. And you were really surprised by that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you didn't think I ever got angry.
No.
And then we put it all in a graph for Stephen. So we looked at all these incidents and put it all very visually so we could see what we can see.
So nobody showed me my incident data. I didn't know how to read graphs, so I did some work with my college tutor on reading graphs. And we had a session where we looked at the graphs to my incident data and practice reading them. Together we looked at how many incidents I had, my antecedents, what I did, and the consequences of the incident.
So what can you tell everybody about this then?
So, first, when I first came, it got to 1 instant, and it got slowly, then it got up, and then it went down to 0.
Yeah. So what months did you have the most incidents?
Oc- October and January,
Yeah. And what's happening to them on the graph?
they're going down.
They're going down, yeah. And you really like to live this, didn't you?
Yeah,
And you like to design the Doncaster Rover symbol on them.
yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously alongside all of that and looking at the incidents and looking at the antecedents, we thought it'd be a good idea to talk about functions. We were particularly interested in finding out if Stephen's scores on the BBAT would be different to the staff team. So we tricked everybody a little bit, didn't we?
Yeah,
We did it with you first, and then with your permission, we met with staff separately, didn't we?
yeah,
So traditional BBAT scoring sheet is not easy to understand or complete, and sometimes we've had to put a lot of guidance to staff teams to complete them. And we've had to really think about how we could make this easier to understand. So again, we worked with our speech and language team to make questions accessible for Stephen. And we used the Mentimeter online presentation platform to make it interactive and break it down. And then we added some further guidance. So never meant never, rarely meant 2 or 3 times a year. Some of the time was a few months in the year, often was monthly, and always was weekly. And this is what it looked like. So these are the questions on the BBAT on the left, and on the right is what they looked like on the Mentimeter app. Yeah.
Sara then talked to me about functions of behavior. It was important for us to share with me why incidents were happening. 4 functions of behavior are sensory, it feels good and helps people feel better. Escape, to leave a situation that I don't like or something I don't want to do. Attention, get somebody's attention, and tangible, to get something I want.
So looking at your most common ones, what can you see?
So the most common one was I've requested something from my staff.
And what function would that be?
That means tangible.
Yeah. So most of yours is around, yeah. You want to talk about the others?
Yeah.
Okay.
So staff asking me to do something that is escape, to leave a situation I don't like or something I don't want to do. Then around through the meal times is tangible. And then I'm supported by staff I don't know, which is escape.
Yeah. We talked about that one in depth, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we looked at what helps. So we talked about what often happens when you're upset and what helps and what doesn't help. And this was particularly helpful for us to know, because sometimes we might be doing something that is not really helping when we might be making the situation worse.
So a consequence of what happens after an incident. Looking at the consequences to my incident helped me, my staff, know what really was helping and what was not helping, so they can support me better.
So what sort of things were helping?
Staff asking me what I need, counting to 10, remind me to stop, going for a walk, giving me choices, talking about how I feel, taking time out, and getting a drink.
And what doesn't help?
Staff not explaining things, running away, staff helping me without asking, not saying anything, hitting phone or shouting, giving me space when I don't want to, and going to my room.
And that one is particularly important for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, because things in my past I don't like going to my bedroom when I'm upset.
And then it came to a time where we had to put everything together. And for those of you that write FBA reports, it's not always the most accessible document. it can be really, really lengthy, and he's got lots of words like the picture on the right. You know, sometimes you look at that, though, you know, that piece of paper, you go, oh, there's a lot of words, there's a lot of numbers. What does that even mean? So, and we had lots of good information from the sessions that we did together. So we decided to create a visual FBA report, because at the end of the day, it's yours, isn't it? It's your FBA report, it's nobody else's. So Stephen designed a visual FBA report with us, didn't you? You chose all the colours, you chose all the pictures. We still keep adding to this document. We're not quite finished yet, are we? Because we keep changing things and adding things. But it's a PowerPoint presentation that you want to eventually share with everyone. Yeah. And how many slides are on it? Do you remember? I think it's about 30, 31. But we feel it's very accessible, not only to Stephen, but staff, teams, families, everyone. 31, yes. 31 slides we've got on there.
So what this process taught us?
So what we found that by involving Stephen, we got a lot more detailed information. So discussions with staff and about incident analysis showed us that talking to a manager was a common consequence, and he was very quick at de-escalating a situation. And then I asked you why. Why was that? And what did you say?
A manager knows better what is right. Managers explain the right and they fix it for me, or tell me when it might happen again.
But then what we also found was that there was some agreement between what you were saying and what staff saying in terms of the descriptions of antecedents and when things didn't go right. Okay?
Yeah.
And when we look at the BBAT score comparison, what we found particularly interesting is if we were to look at the individual questions on the BBAT, the results were quite similar. Apart from 1 point here and there, 89% of the questions were actually quite similar. However, those little differences had a major impact on the overall scores and the functions. So if we were to look at Stephen's ratings, Stephen scored self-stimulation quite high and escape. Whereas when we looked at the staff scores, they were scoring much higher on tangible, social attention and escape. But actually, there's also not much of a big difference when it comes to self-stimulation. And the differences were caused by, there was a very clear divide in terms of opinions about staff not recognizing when you were bored. They found that really difficult. They thought you were having a good time, whereas actually you were bored. There was some perception of behaviours of concern around swearing. So staff felt, oh, he's swearing, this is not great. But what did you say swearing made you feel? Comfortable, and it's something that you like to do. Yeah. So looking at this, if we had just involved the staff team and not Stephen, we would have missed we would have missed those details that you were able to tell us.
So how we found the process? I found the process hard. There were lots of things for me to think about and some difficult conversations. It took a long time to go through everything, but I liked that it got me out of some lessons. It was better than shopping and cleaning up. It was also fun to spend one-to-one time together, playing games like Snakes and Ladders, which is my favorite because it was fun. I learned a lot, like the things I could do to help me when I am upset, like talking about what is bothering me. If I had a choice, I would do it all again because I think it's important that I continue to be involved with the plan now I found me.
And from my point of view, it was very eye-opening. It turns out that the best expert was Stephen, actually. I got a lot more engagement. So when Stephen was involved, he knows what's in it and you want to follow it, don't you?
Yeah.
And equally, we were able to reflect on things that were happening and if our discussions were helping or not. It wasn't always easy, figuring out how to get the input took a lot of trial and error. Sometimes we had great ideas and then we put them into practice and they didn't work. Other times, the quickest and, you know, the one that we thought wouldn't work was the one that we got the most information from. We learned how to listen better and not assume that we always know best. And I've also had to learn that data's not everything. A BBAT score is not everything, and incident data is not everything. So data's only as good as the way it's being recorded. It took a long time. This has been a long process, and we've had some barriers along the way, you know, in terms of availability, college lessons, college events. Sometimes, you know, I could take annual leave or you were away for the day, illnesses. So that kind of delayed the process a bit. But at the end of the day, it was totally worth it. The assessment was done with Stephen and not to Stephen. So where we go next?
So, living supported living, continue work experience, a job as a sport coach or tutor, be involved in doing training with my support staff, and to present my assessments to any new staff that are going to be supporting me.
And from my point of view, we're still updating Stephen's PBS plan and we're making it very visual, like the FDA report, aren't we? Because sometimes PBS plans aren't accessible either. And we're thinking about doing some person-centered training with your staff team, aren't we? Which you are going to lead. Yeah, I'm just there to help you out. Yeah, if you need me. So, and then our call to action for everybody that, you know, is conducting functional behavior assessments. Start with their voice, not ours. I've had to change a lot of my ways, you know, like when you run functional behavior assessments, you know, you've got a process to follow. However, I had to not follow that process. We've had to make meetings and plans more accessible to everybody. I had many meetings with our speech and language team to make sure that we had the right visuals, that we were able to get the right input. Giving real choices, not just tokens. So asking people, what do you want to tell me about this, rather than, does this work, does this not work? It's a very close question. We've had to keep adapting and checking in. We still do this all the time, every day almost. And I've had to challenge my own habits. You know, just because something has always been done that way does not mean it's the right way. And at the end of the day, we're wanting to push for bigger changes. Obviously, this presentation is about the work that we've done together, but we want to push this out and making sure that this is happening across the board to everybody.
So, CEU keyword,
Go
Horcrux from Harry Potter.
on. And then
here we have a video from a very special guest that is watching us now, my dad. That talks about how important the right support is and the difference this has made to my life.
I'm the father of Stephen Robotham, who's attended Mercury College about 6 months now. It was all very, very quick because it was a fairly sort of short placement from his previous establishment. But it was something that I knew was going to be beneficial to Stephen as far as getting long-term sort of education in place for him for post-19, really, which seemed to give him a better structure in his life, apart from obviously his accommodation. I think the change in him is phenomenal. From when he first started back in August, September time now, I think it was, it's changed dramatically, and he's more engaged and he's more focused, and it really has helped him build up some relationships, not just with the other young people at the college, but also some really positive relationships with the staff. And I think that getting a work placement for him has always been my ambition for Stephen, because I know he will thrive in that sort of environment. And the news that he's going to get a placement quite soon with something he's really interested in, rather than just a placement, is a really positive thing for Stephen, and it's something that I really do hope he embraces, and I think he will. And I think he will get the most out of something like that, which will add to the structure in his life. Because of the challenges he's got, structure is so important for him, and I think this is what will give it to him over and above the college work that he's doing as well. And it's been a real sort of find, Mercury, for Stephen. And I just think he will move on now and be really positive in the next phase of his life into being an adult. I think Stephen's got some relationships with a lot of different people, and he's always been able to associate with adults quite positively. But I think that he has needed some guidance in the way he works. And I think the staff who do the transition from home to college, and the staff within college, like there's obviously Andy and Ricky, who are really sort of helping Stephen in his sort of transition from his home setting into college. They've been really positive sort of relationships, and certainly he does have people that he does sort of latch onto. And Sara, I think, within the college has been a really positive influence for him and has helped him unravel some things, which has been really positive. And he does really sort of value those sort of relationships with those people within college. And certainly when I've only experienced college life once, very briefly, and it was so positive for him, and it was quite obvious that the staff are not just staff, they're like genuine friends to him. And I think that really was sort of made clear when I came in for that particular day. It wasn't a student-teacher relationship, it was a real friendly environment, and that's what he's thrived on. It was always a big upheaval for Stephen when he left full-time education, and he had a period of time where he didn't have anything during the day. And I think when you've got somebody with special educational needs and autism, it's clear they need that structure and that regularity in their life. And Stephen didn't have that for probably 12 months. And it really did unsettle him and made it difficult for him to lead a normal life, which he really did feel insecure. And I think that helps foster some probably negative behaviours. But since he's been able to come to Mercury, it's given him the structure that he thrives upon, and he's always been able to see that as a massive benefit. When he's got nothing to fill his time in, he doesn't really react very well and very positively. But the structure that Mercury has given him has been so obvious in the way his behaviour has been much more positive and has helped him to develop and to grow into the really sort of impressive young man that I see every week now than when I come to see him. The main benefits I see with Mercury and the home setting is there is a continuous sort of care path from the home into the educational setting, and there's that consistency and that link, which autism needs a little bit of continuity, well, a lot of continuity. And this particular setting gives Stephen that security, which helps him thrive. The actual joined up approach is so positive for Stephen, and it does make his life so much more positive and much better, and his development. And obviously he's got the carers who he lives with during the day. They actually come into college with him. They work with him in college, and they can take that back into the home environment. I think when I've had experience of it, I know that they are frustrated sometimes when he won't cook for them, when he's learnt some of the things in college. But it is such a positive sort of joined up approach to the care and the education, which Stephen thrives upon, and I'm sure most other autistic youngsters would actually benefit massively from. It's like an extension to his family. He feels so secure and so safe, and it helps him develop as a young person, and it's a huge benefit to him as an individual. And I can't think of anything negative that happens within the college and or the home setting. It's just an amazing place, and I wish I'd have found it a few years ago. In some cases, a child in full-time residential care is not the ideal scenario for any parent. But you have to look at what's best for the individual, and a place where he can have, or she can have, a continuity of care from a home setting into an educational setting has to be a real benefit. And there's nothing worse than trying to make two things fit for a young person, whether it's education or a care setting, but you've got something on both, on the same site almost here. It's just such a positive sort of setting to develop any young person. It's just a continuous sort of flow from home to education. I would say that any parent coming here couldn't fail to be impressed, and it's just safe for your child, and I think that's the ultimate that you want for any young person you're looking to put into some educational establishment such as Mercury College.
Your take-home message.
I'm right here. Don't assume that you know best. Nobody knows more than me. How about asking me instead of guessing? If the plan is not working, maybe it's a problem. Trust me and openly, it will save both a hassle and a headache by me.
And then for further information, we've attached some of the resources that we've used, and there's my contact in there if anybody would like a copy of the slides or ask any questions.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm going to send you the chat anyway, after we've agreed this, haven't we, after the session. So I won't go through all the incredible feedback that has been coming in as we've been going through the session. It really has been very positively received. And yeah, it's just so wonderful to hear all those perspectives. But just, I suppose, to let you know, in case I forget to say, you got to 179 people listening to you talk about all that really powerful, important stuff. And that's huge. And I know that lots of these people are going to be really interested in having access to the slides and the resources and perhaps getting in touch. So just think about the impact that's going to have, which is super wonderful, I think. So so thank you so much. There were a couple of people who asked about how long the process took from beginning to end. I don't know if that's one that you're able to answer.
The sessions, was it in the summer?
Yeah.
Summer holidays we've started, and we're just about finishing, you know, all the paperwork bit, all the report bits and your previous plan. Granted, we had a few hiccups along the way, didn't we?
Yeah.
So it probably could have been done a bit sooner.
Yes.
We get a bit distracted sometimes, don't we? Yeah.
Then it takes a bit of time sometimes to get things done right, isn't it?
And I think that was one of the biggest barriers for me personally. So if you have a deadline, this can take a very, very long time. However, the information you get a lot more than if you were to do it quicker.
But she said, Stephen, what did you think about redirection? What did you tell staff to do instead? That was her question.
The previous plan said that if you got distracted, you didn't want anything, for staff to redirect you back to the task. What did you want staff to do instead?
Just tell me to concentrate.
Yeah. Did you find it easier for them to do it alongside you?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So helping was a big one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than just redirecting you back.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes you do need a bit of a movement break, don't you? Sometimes you need a break.
That's fair enough, really, isn't it? Yeah, lots of us do. At the end of the day, that's fab. I don't suppose you'd be able to skip back to the previous slide, Sara, so that people can see your email address again, because we had a couple of people saying they didn't get a chance to pop that down, although that's fantastic. Yeah, a couple of accidental hand raises. That's absolutely fine. Don't worry, folks. Any other questions coming in? So Georgie doesn't think she's going to be able to come in and ask her question, but what she's been saying, that it would be really wonderful if we could write this up and sort of use it as research and stuff that can help people going forward. So if that would be something that you'd be interested in doing, she's got your email address now, so she might be in touch.
Yeah.
Fancy a published journal article, Stephen, in your name? That would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Fab.
So we've got, as Paddy might mentioned, if any of you weren't in the introductory session this morning, we are going to be involved as guest editors in a special edition of the Tizard Learning Disability Review. And this just feels perfect because what we're really keen is to have practitioner-led stuff in that journal. We want to hear about real life stuff that's making a difference. And all this learning from mistakes and all of those elements really important. So yeah, if that was something that you folks could bring together, Georgie, I know Georgie's pretty keen and happy to be part of that process. So it'd be lovely to link you up. So Georgie, drop them an email and then drop us an email and we'll see what we could do because we're helping with that journal edition. So that's wonderful. One other question, so question for Stephen. What did you think about the process before you started the process compared to now?
It was really good.
But what do you know when I first showed you those sessions, what did you think?
Hard.
Yeah. Did you think, oh no, it's a lot of work?
Yeah,
What about now? How do you feel about it now?
really happy.
You're really happy.
Yeah, I get those vibes, and it's just so wonderful to see all those personalised bits. I think you really get to see you, Stephen, and who you are as a person, which is the important stuff, isn't it? Someone has asked if you use any specific tools to demonstrate effectiveness of the plan. Have you got to that sort of stage?
That stage yet. I think it's probably something we could talk about. Yeah. I think it's something that we've had some background talks about, but it's something we're still looking into.
Yeah. So sort of early stages, and again, perhaps some of the stuff that you might be able to look in the future in relation to write-ups and research and those sorts of things. It was also so wonderful to hear from your dad as well, Stephen. I think that was really nice to hear that perspective, and I know he's here cheering you on. One of the 179 people who are all cheering you on, so that's fab. Wonderful. Any other? I'm just making sure I haven't missed any of their additional questions. Okay, I don't think there's any other sort of direct questions, just all the wonderful feedback, which I will be sending over to you. I'll try and do it as soon as we finish because I think it'd be really nice to read through what people have been writing because there's been really lovely comments in there. And thank you everyone for your comments and your feedback as well. That's really appreciated. So I'll pop those over to you, Stephen and Sara, and let you get on with your day. Hopefully you're going to go away and just give yourselves an enormous pat on the back because that was absolutely awesome.
We're gonna have lunch now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much. CUs, it's those two words, capital first letter, lowercase the rest of the letters, no spaces. And the link will be forwarded to you once the session has ended. Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. We'll close the session down now, but we'll